Welcome back to Car Trouble. Apologies for the music you can hear in the background. Some of the local neighbourhood youth came knocking and wanted to wash the car. I didn't really want them to. I thought they were going to scratch it or make a terrible job of it, but they were quite persuasive, and you have to admire their entrepreneurial spirit. Oi! Don't forget the wing mirrors. Everyone always forgets the wing mirrors. Thank you. Get off the bonnet! Oi! You'll scratch it! Do I have to come out there and get the hose and spray you all down with cold water? Right. Oh, damn it! Oh, man. Still, it's not all bad. I got me a new car. Aston Martin DB9. What? Look. Look. And it's all mine. Damn it. Alright, so I might not have my own DB9, but I do get to review one today because my mate has very kindly lent me his. I'm not going to pass up an offer like that, am I? Splendid. The DB9 was launched back in 2003. Came in two body styles, Coupe and Volante, which is a convertible to me and you. Only one engine was available, a glorious, naturally aspirated 6-litre V12. The engine was developed from a Ford engine, but don't let that put you off. Here's what happened. Before it was even a Ford engine, it was jointly developed by Mazda and Suzuki with a load of input. The weather is absolutely atrocious today, but it's not going to spoil Aston Martin Day for me. Oh no! Before it was even a Ford engine, Mazda and Suzuki jointly developed it with a load of engineering input from Porsche. It was intended solely for use in Japan. It was used in the Mazda MX-6 and the Ford Probe. Now there's a car that was named after a male appendage. At the time, Ford owned a chunk of Mazda, and they got their hands on the engine, and with a load of engineering help from Cosworth, they turned it into the Ford 3-litre V6 Duratec, which is not a bad engine, and it's used in loads of cars. Aston Martin decided to bolt two of these 3-litre Duratec engines together, sprinkle on some Aston Martin fairy dust, and the result is this incredibly smooth and powerful and amazing sounding V12. On its launch in 2003, the DB9 developed 450 horsepower. In 2009, it was up to 470 horsepower and 600 nm of torques. If you buy a post-2013 model, you get an extra 50 horsepower and an extra 20 nm of torques. Now, there's no denying that the DB9 is one of the prettiest cars of all time. This design's 17 years old, and it still looks unbelievably sexy. Cue the car porn. I've come to fix your washing machine. Doof doof, yeah? Now I'm torn as to whether the Aston Martin brand is actually cool or not. Now that's an interesting debate, because despite the obvious Bond connection going back through generations of Astons, apart from the DB5, does anybody really think of James Bond when an Aston Martin drives past? Because I don't. Normally it's been driven by an older gent, with white hair, normally wearing a sweater. Not particularly Bond-like. Alright love, I'll have a pint of lager, not shaken or stirred, just in a glass. And I think the only time I'd actually think of James Bond is if Daniel Craig drove past in his actual real-life Aston Martin. In which case I'd probably duck so I don't get my ass shot off, but that is quite cool. Although I think he's taken his method acting a little bit too far. I certainly wouldn't feel the same way if I saw Pierce Brosnan driving around in his real-life Vanquish. He stopped being James Bond for me when he started singing in Mamma Mia. He may as well have just defected to the Soviet Union. I mean, it was pretty cool when he was beating up Sean Bean on a satellite dish, but then he started singing ABBA songs with Julie Walters. He is no longer cool. And footballers drive them. And while we're talking about brand image, let's not forget that Prince Charles drives an Aston Martin.
What's one trying to say?
But you're not exactly cool, are you, Charles?
Well, maybe one should go and f*** oneself.
Charming, Prince. But is the DB9 cool? Top Gear called the DB9 too cool for their cool wall and put it in its own little mini fridge. Well, hopefully we'll find out.
So, starting with the front end, the DB9 proudly wears the Aston style grille, which as a design feature has been stolen by Ford and used to add some prestige to models like the Fiesta. Still looks fantastic though, but I've heard this gorgeous front end is prone to stone chipping, so you'd either need to get it protected or keep an eye on the stone chips so they don't rust.
The doors open slightly upwards just to be quirky. It could be that Aston were hoping to make their own design statement, like a take on a gull-wing door or a scissor door. Maybe they called it a seagull door.
My theory is so that fat guys don't damage your doors. Have you ever pulled up next to a high curb, someone's opened the door, got in and grounded the door on the curb?
Around the back, the gorgeous design continues. It's unmistakably Aston Martin. There's nothing like it and it's still fresh. Just isn't an angle on this car that isn't beautiful. It doesn't need bonnet bulges or flared wheel arches. It's elegant class and beauty that a Bentley Continental can only dream of. Under the bonnet there's the lovely 6-litre V12 and the plaque that says hand built by Mick Moten. I knew a guy called Mick Moten once. I wouldn't have trusted him to make a sandwich. Must be a different guy.
Inside, the first thing you see is the steering wheel, and I've got to say, it's a bit drab. I've never been a fan of Aston Martin steering wheels. They're just a bit vanilla. But this car came around before all the fancy steering wheels started appearing, so I should probably cut it some slack. Especially as lurking behind it are some of the best dials I've ever seen on a car. I'm not really a fan of the new modern LCD dashboards. I like old school dials, and I've got to say, these are incredible. They're like an exotic timepiece, like a Rolex Mariner or something. But I'm guessing that's intentional. The speedometer's not the easiest to read at a quick glance, but they've covered that by putting a big digital one in the middle. I'm not really a fan of the reverse rev counter either. In my head, it should be clockwise, left to right. I know it looks good, but I just can't get my head around it. The rest of the interior is just as luxurious. All quality materials that seem to be screwed together pretty well. I wasn't actually expecting it to be this nice, and it's nice to see they haven't raided the Ford parts bin for all the switches. The seats are supremely comfortable, supportive and comfortable at the same time, and especially forgiving if you've got a tubby middle like me. The rear seats are absolutely pointless. They may as well not have bothered. But I suppose it doesn't really matter. If you're going to spend £50,000 upwards on a car, you're unlikely to be the one sat in the back. And it's not a chauffeur car. They don't look particularly inviting and there's no easy access. And with that legroom, the only person you're going to be given a lift to is Oscar Pistorius.
I'm not keen on the keys really. I've still got a bit of Volvo and Ford about them, but still way better than that silly crystal thing they did.
I do think that Power Beauty Soul thing is a bit wanky. It's the automotive equivalent of that twat you work with that says things like, women love me, and I've got a huge dick. The dash layout's nice and simple. There's no menus to scroll through like on iDrives. Just the buttons that you need, and once you know where they are, sorted. The centre console feels a bit plasticky, but it doesn't detract from the overall quality. The Achilles heel for the DB9 has always been its navigation system. The later ones like this one upgraded to a Garmin system, which is way better, but still by modern standards is pretty woeful. Okay then, let's get on to the bit I've been waiting for. Let's start it. Oh lordy, I think some liquid came out of me. Right, I'm going to go and clean myself up and then we'll go for a drive. Now it's important to remember that this is not a supercar. It's not even a sports car, it's a Grand Tourer. That means it has to strike a balance between comfortable mile munching and effortless power delivery. And they seem to have struck that balance perfectly. This is good for 190 miles an hour flat out, and it'll do 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. So it doesn't hang around. If you want to blast down windy A roads or cross Europe in a day, it'll do both. And they've genuinely found the right balance. When you put your foot down, the power's delivered like a tsunami, in the creamy way that only a naturally aspirated V12 can do. But it also feels like, if I had a spare £700 for fuel, I could drive down to the south of France and back, and get out and I'd feel like I just had an afternoon snooze. All that whilst delivering the most amazing sound that makes you never want to listen to the car radio ever again. For a big heavy Grand Tour, it holds the road like something half its weight. Aston did an amazing job with the chassis. I expected the steering to be a little bit vague as well, but they've done a great job with it. It's balanced and precise. It's a real joy to drive. Now, when it was brand new back in 2009, this car cost £116,000. Now, adjusted for inflation for 2020, that's the equivalent of £155,000 now. You could have bought two 911 Carreras for the same price. And that's really something to think about, because in some ways the 911 is a better car. But that's missing the point. My pal who owns this DB9 also owns a 2015 Audi S8. It's faster than the DB9, it can carry 4 adults in comfort and loads of luggage, and even though it costs more than the Aston, it's discreet enough to be able to park anywhere. Theoretically, it's better than the DB9 in every way, except one. If he wants to make an entrance or impress somebody, or even just feel great driving something, he always takes the Aston. Nobody stops to ask about the S8. Everybody comments on the DB9, and that's where it wins. You just feel great driving it, and parking it, and looking at it. It's hard to put into words how this car makes you feel. It sort of shows off without showing off. And it's kind of saying, I have great taste, and pots of cash. So for that reason, I think it is cool. It's not always about whether other people think you're cool. It's whether you feel cool. If I drove this around all the time, I wouldn't really care what people think, because I'd be too busy imagining that they think I'm cool. You can now pick these up for as little as £35,000. But once again, buying cheap could land you with some massive bills. All the rules that apply to buying expensive, complicated cars exist right here. For resale values, stick to the conservative colours. There were some eclectic owners that had some strange choices. Stick to blacks, silvers, dark blues, and interiors stick to blacks and greys. Steer clear of yellow and burgundy and green and blue interiors. I truly believe nice ones now are going to make a great investment, especially if you can find a manual. They're rarer and much less complicated, more likely to be reliable long term. Couple that with the fact that the DB9 is no longer in production, and it means that the prices of manual DB9s are going to rise strongly in the future. VinWiki in America have proved that manual exotic cars are a great investment. I certainly wouldn't have bought a new one. The owners that did took a massive hit in depreciation, but if you buy right now, you could do very well. So in summary, it's not as sporty to drive as a 911, probably not as good a Grand Tour as a Mercedes SL, and it's not as practical as an Audi S8, or as fast for that matter. And that's the thing with the DB9, there are better cars out there that do a better job. But for a car that's just supposed to stir emotion, it's pretty perfect. So that's it, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and click the notification bell thingy so you don't miss any future uploads. I'll see you in the next video for probably something not quite as flash.